Be January 24th, 2021. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on today's show, I have a special guest. I'm pleased to have on the former Greenwich head coach, now with the Arizona Wildcats of the Pac-12. His name, John Marinelli. John, it's a pleasure to be able to have you on the show, man.
I appreciate you having me.
First and foremost, before we get into the nitty-gritty in the business, I just want to ask, how is your family and everybody doing as far as, with what's going on with COVID and everything else?
Thanks for asking. It's good. Everyone's healthy and safe, and in a crazy time of the year or crazy year, and so I appreciate that. And how's your family?
Not too bad. I mean, my girlfriend's a teacher, and she's a teacher in Waterbury, so it's been difficult as far as first they started out with having kids at the school, and then now she's teaching at the school, but the kids are doing virtual, and it's a lot of stress and all that. But just overall, it's Connecticut. I mean, I'm sure you kind of kept track of what was going on as far as on the sports side, you know, between the football side, especially between having football, conditioning, and not playing and pausing. I mean, were you kind of in the loop with all that?
Yeah, obviously I talk to my dad a lot, and a bunch of coaches, but I feel bad for high school athletes in the state of Connecticut, specifically football players. We're taking one from Bloomfield. He was at Trinity Pauling, but it's definitely a tough time. I mean, if you're a senior, if you're in the class of 2021 and you're coming to college, you've never stepped on foot as a recruit to, all of our recruits, they haven't been on campus. So you're blind recruiting both sides. So, especially kids in Connecticut who didn't get a chance to play their senior year, there's a ton of talent that's up there. There's a lot of good football talent, underrated football talent that they didn't get their senior year, and those juniors didn't get their junior year, and those sophomores didn't get their sophomore year, and the freshmen didn't get a chance to develop in a program, and the list can go on and down the way. I mean, football needs to be played. It can't, and it needs to be, I mean, it needs to be played the right way too. So I feel terrible for the athletes, the coaches, the families, and everybody involved that wanted football to come, because it didn't seem like they were getting a lot of help from the state.
It was very, very difficult on them. We'll probably mention, we'll talk a little bit about the high school football side here later on in the podcast. But I have you on here because you had a great career as far as a head coach at Greenwich. And before we even get into that, I kind of want a little bit of a synopsis rather, of kind of your path as far as if you played football, and then also all the way through as far as what brought you into coaching.
Yeah, so in my situation, there's kind of two paths you can take after college to be a college coach. So after you play or you don't play, you try to be a graduate assistant, and a graduate assistant on a staff, and I think you have 3 years at a school, and you have 3 years to get a degree at that school. So we have graduate assistants here that are here for 2-3 years at a time. You max out at your school after 3 years, and then also you max out 7 years from the time that you last played. So you can't be a GA at if you graduate at 23, you can't be a GA at 30, or 30 would be your last year. You can't be a GA at 31. Obviously, I didn't take that route. I had a bunch of opportunities to go to the Pac-12, go to the SEC one time, the ACC, and even FCS schools to be a GA when I was younger. I worked at I worked at Rhode Island for a brief stint right out of college. And then I went to be a high school coach, because at the time I didn't know if all this moving around and what I just went through with being on a staff that was let go. I didn't know if that was something that I really wanted to do. And being more of a homebody at the time made more sense. So my dad had an open spot. So I went into the professional world, and I started coaching at New Canaan. And then as it progressed, I took the head coaching job at Greenwich, and then we built, what we felt was a really good program for the community and for kids. And you didn't have to just play for Greenwich football to feel the passion and energy that program was doing for the town. And for me, that was, building that with a lot of help from a lot of people. I felt like, okay, maybe this is the time to go to college football. Maybe this is the time to make the jump. And, I was we were so successful, and there's only a few teams that really could match up against us. In all honesty, I mean, it was the haves and have-nots, and I know a lot of different talk about scheduling, but that last year we game planned as a staff, for every game. But did you really have to? It was some of the teams that you were playing. And so that kind of was like, I want more. I want this every week. I want to be, knees deep into game planning and the analytics and everything. So we made the jump, and now I'm here, and I've been fired. So very humbling this profession can be. So been here for 2 years. It was a great experience. Got fired, and fortunately was lucky enough to be retained by Coach Fish.
That's awesome. I mean, there's a lot to be able to digest here, and we'll try to get little by little. First, as far as what you brought up, as far as you had a couple opportunities to be able to go to various Power Five schools, but you decided to go the high school route. Do you feel like because of where you were psychologically, mentally, but also being a young man at the time as you were, that maybe going that high school route was probably beneficial for you as a coach, still growing?
Yeah, I think I never want to lose the high school coach in me, the one that is connected to the players, not only academically, not only personally, that to me is coaching, is understanding your players, knowing the right buttons to press, and always being there for them. And I feel like in this profession, sometimes you go from playing to being a GA, or working in a building where the connection with the kids is different. I was in a leadership role. I'm still, obviously, as a coach, you're always in the leadership role, but I was the leader of that, program, and had my hands on everything. I was involved with all the students. And at this level, it's a little different because it's just kind of spread out. You still have the same relationships, but I don't know if I would have been able to have the relationship skills that I currently have. I think they're pretty good, that if I wasn't a high school coach.
What was it like being when you got the head coaching job at Greenwich? I know the first year you went 4-5. Kind of just take me into what were some of the positives and maybe not even negatives, but what were the things that you learned that you still carry with you from that first year at Greenwich?
Uh, the grind, trust the process, and grind. That's it. I mean, it was hard. Going 4-5. I just came off of a state championship, a couple state championships, and a lot of success at New Canaan. And in no way did I walk into Greenwich and say, "Well, I'm here. I just saved the program." I mean, it was putting in your offense, putting in your defense, getting a staff that wanted to be a part of the community, not just show up at Greenwich and coach and leave. And I wanted Greenwich was such a powerhouse program when I was playing, and seeing the band, seeing the fans, and Greenwich, like I was scared to play Greenwich, because I knew it was going to be a game. Not I was scared to play them, but what I'm saying, like you knew it was a big thing, and I wanted to bring that back. I felt like playing Greenwich at New Canaan, those kids weren't scared of Greenwich. They weren't afraid to play them. They weren't in the same category as that. That's the way they felt. And I needed to bring that fear back. So hard work and grind, developing an off-season lifting program for our students, for our student athletes, and then making sure that they're involved in multiple sports. That was a big thing for me, is play multiple sports, try to get them out on the basketball court, try to get them out in lacrosse field. I got along with Bobby Lutz, the lacrosse coach there. Was we shared an office, so it was a lot of fun with some of the coaches that were there when I was there. And but that was the main thing, is just working, grinding, and building all of that into the community. Was proud of it. So you had more help from the community. It's a two-way street. Whenever you're a high school coach, I don't care whatever sport, you got to be involved in your players' lives, their families, and you got to be involved in the community. And if you want to get anything back in return, and I just felt like the way we had built it, it was great, and it just happened to be that way. There's a lot of people in Greenwich that were willing to lend a hand, willing to help, willing to do whatever it took for kids, for if we need anything or whatever. There was never no one ever said no. Someone say, "Well, let me see." The answer was, if they couldn't do it right then, it was, "Let me look into it, or I can make a phone call for you." And that's the ultimate. When you have a community, or that's helping a program like that, it makes my job a little easier.
In doing this podcast since I've started in March when the pandemic started, the one thing I've noticed from talking to both high school coaches and now I have an opportunity to to talk to a couple college coaches. The one thing I've noticed really is the sense of community and being able to have that support. Because if you have that support, then it almost seems like it helps the coach in some ways job easier as far as to various degrees. I know you're talking about as far as if you need help with something on the field, off the field, it makes it easier when you have that support. Just like if you have a staff, if you're the head coach and you don't have to be at every single position, you can kind of just rover in a way and just look at and not have to stay there. That's really kind of what it sounds like as far as the strength of having a strong community around.
Yeah, because as a head coach, you're really just a connector, right? Your kids want to go play football in college, you're going to connect them to college coaches to get recruited. Your kid is getting a bad grade in math, you're going to connect them with a tutor. And one of the, I'll never forget, he was a youth coach, and a great guy. And he told me his stories of, when he had, he had alcohol addiction, and he sat me down. We sat in the Greenwich Starbucks. And he told me his story, and he said, look, I just want to be able to help any kids that are going through what I went through. And if anything comes up, just know that I'm a phone call away. And that, that's the type of help that I'm talking about. It's not like I need to get more of this or I need to buy things. It was helping kids realize that there's someone out there for any situation that comes up, and me being the connector, or our coaching staff being the connector.
When did you think or realize that the program was starting to turn under when you were there? Was it at the end of the first year? Was it at the beginning of the second? Was it during the off season? At the end of the first season? When was it to you where you felt like things were starting to turn the corner?
Well, from a football standpoint, the second half of Staples on Thanksgiving Day, we lost, but things started to click football wise. Offensively, defensively, things were moving, and that helped us in the off season big time. But from a program standpoint, we had suspended some players, and for a game, and we got killed by Ridgefield. But the community saw that I was not, and this coaching staff was not going to be bullied by parents. We were not going to be bullied by students. They were, there was a standard, and you had to hit that standard if you wanted to dress and play for those games, for any game. And that's showing up to practice. That's being there. Like, I had a lot of players, and this is just previous staff. They didn't have to be at practice every day. I don't believe that that's true, because Richie Albanizio is a pretty good football coach, but that's the excuse that I was given by some of these. And like, that's got to change. So we put our foot down, and we went into the game with a third string quarterback who really never took quarterback reps for us the entire year. And we kept him throughout the entire rest of the year. But that moment, the community saw that this was different. There's going to be discipline. There's going to be a standard. And the kids really liked that too, because there's accountability. If this kid's showing up every day and not playing, why, and this kid misses a practice. So accountability. And that's when I think it came to fruition, and it helped us in the off season. And it helped us, just hold kids accountable and be disciplined.
And that helped too when you consider being able to discipline side and seeing the turn. I mean, we mentioned the first year 4-5, second year 7-4, and then it just kept getting better and better. Third year 12-1, state finalist, 2018 13-0 state championship against your father. I mean, just every year you kept getting better and better. And again, it just goes back to the community and just keeping what you said as far as making sure that everybody was held accountable, no matter if you were the let's just say 5-star player or the last player on the bench who rarely got to play.
Yeah, and my coaching staff was amazing. I mean, that's bar none one of the best coaching staffs I've ever been on. And when you have coaches that don't want to leave, and that helps create continuity, and it helps kids not have to learn a new system or this. That was huge. I made changes after the first year, and then I had the same staff. I've only added staff members for the last 3 years I was there. No one left. So that's huge. I mean, it helps the kids, parents, community. We were a part of the community. We were at the Boys and Girls Club. We were eating in local restaurants. We were a part of the community, and That's why I consider Greenwich to be home. I love it there. And it's don't tell too many people from New Canaan that, but whenever I come home, I go to Greenwich. So I love it.
Do you think that what you did as far as at Greenwich, being able to, in a lot of ways, kind of lay the foundation and then build a pathway for future coaches and also players too to see this is the right way to go? Do you feel like even though you are now no longer coaching at Greenwich, that you left it? Because I feel like in a lot of ways, coaches know at a certain point, regardless if you're an assistant or a head coach, that there's going to be a certain time period where you will move on. There's very rarely guys like Bill Belichick who are there for 20 plus years. But do you think that you kind of left it better than when you came in some ways? And I'm not saying that in a negative way to the previous regime.
No, I know. I think in 2015 we had 110 players in the program. When I left in 2019 spring, we had 240. So alone, by numbers alone, yeah, I think we helped a lot of. I think we left the program in a much better shape. Not only when you just, again, football aside, we had our strength staff. I mean, was like a college staff. I mean, it was incredible what we were doing. We rebuilt the weight room. I think I think that program helped put Greenwich Athletics in a better situation because so many kids were playing, and also so many kids were playing other sports. Of the 240, really like only like less than 3% of that roster was football only. So to me, like, yeah, that's leaving a program in a better place because you're providing a platform for and advocating for athletes, but you're also putting we had our off-season weight program. Everyone went through our strength staff. If you were the basketball team, if you were the baseball team, everyone went through our strength staff. And so that, like, helping athletes, yeah. And then in the community, all the my big thing was the domestic violence awareness because it was local to the YWCA, and I was big into that because as a young teenage male, there's a lot of stupid things that you could do, and I wanted to educate them on everything. It also happened to be the largest crime, or the most second largest crime, or largest crime per year in Greenwich. So it was personal to me. It was we made it personal to our team. So we educated our athletes and families, and for that, I think alone, that's leaving in the program in a better shape. All of those things combined, from a player development to community. Wins and losses come and go. I don't judge a program on wins and losses. I judge it by the relationship between the coaches and the players, and the amount of respect that each of them have for each other. At the end of the day, it's about the kids, and it's about the people who are part of the program. It's not about parents. It's not about administrators. It's not about fans. You want to bring them in and make them involved as much as possible. But my relationship is first with the players and my coaches, and then it's with other people, because it's the experience that they should have.
Do you feel like, in not saying that the decision was easy to leave Greenwich to take the opportunity with Arizona, but do you feel like because of everything you just said, and because you felt like, you know what, maybe this is the right time that to be able to move on and pursue for yourself at the next level?
Yeah, I think professionally too. I think it was hard to not be a teacher and work a real job, and in a real professional teachers are. My dad was a teacher, so I'm not saying anything bad about teachers. To have a job where fit my schedule, where I was in finance, I was in commercial real estate, I did a bunch of different things to allow me to coach football, and it was hard to as you get older and you start to build a family and marry, it's just one's going to suffer. And for me, mentally, I knew that I would go to football first because that was my draw. I wanted the Greenwich football program to be nationally known as just one of the most well-run programs, the classiest program in the state, all, hit everything. And it was ultimately was going to eventually suffer my professional career. And so I wanted to make money and coach. And so I put out some feelers for colleges probably after 2017 season. Almost, I mean, I could have, but I felt like I needed to see a class through And so after 2018, I eventually made the jump, obviously. And, we had a great year in 2018, and we saw a full class through, these freshmen to seniors. And I could have easily stayed. I could be there right now. Like I said, I love Greenwich. I love my athletic director, Gus Lindeen. He's the best athletic director in the state. Not even a question. The amount of times he has helped me navigate, and we're still close to this day. And, so I could easily be there right now. And I saw I think they were 9-2. They lost in the first round of the playoffs. And, we're all competitors. I'm like, okay, well, maybe we'd be 26-0, and we'd be making a run at Southington's. I think Southington still has that game streak, or Chester, maybe, I don't know, one of those two schools. I'm like, that's just the way that I think as a competitor. But, for me, I came to Arizona, and it was a great decision, great life decision for me. My wife and I, after we got married, spend a year with no distractions. It's just, we're here meeting new people. And, I think it was really helpful for us.
I'm glad you mentioned the AD from Greenwich, because I actually emailed him and asked him, like, hey, can you give me any information? And he gave me a lot of what he told me. All of it spoke very highly of you. But the one thing that really and I laughed at it, he said that there were times that you had so much energy, he couldn't keep up with you. And I thought to myself, was this guy, like, it sounds like he always was on like a 5-hour energy, but I think it was because, but seriously though, I think it was because youth and, you have the passion. I mean, you just said not even 2 minutes ago, you wanted Greenwich to be number one. You want it to be the best ran program, and so on and so forth. In doing that, you have to be tip top on your shape. You have to make sure that you're on your toes, and you got to keep it going. And you were able to do that.
I had a lot of ideas. That got shut down. I had a lot of ideas that worked. I had a lot of ideas that didn't work, but I always had ideas, and I wanted to do more. There's no, Lou Holtz made a comment in a speech that his biggest mistake was when he got to the top at Notre Dame, he maintained it. And I'll never forget that, because for me, Greenwich 13-0, really, I screwed up the 17 game. If they had a better head coach and a better play caller on that day, we would have won the game. That's entirely on me. But after really that season, like, all right, how do you get better? And then you revamp the offense, and then your kids are looking at you. You just went 12-1, but you're revamping the offense. But why are we doing this? It worked. We went to the stage. Well, because if we're not doing something, we're not getting better. I don't care whatever organization you're at, whatever school you're at. Alabama's not content with what just happened in 2020. They want to know all right, so how can we get better from that? And, changing things constantly. And that's where I just had all this, I guess he calls it energy. Yeah, there was a lot of Red Bulls, a lot of coffees. I don't really need it because I'm just high energy all the time anyway. But, for me, that was my edge. Like, I just had to keep on turning the corner, keeping my coaches on their toes, and in the off season especially, and obviously with kids, motivating them, getting them nice things. I wanted them to have nice things. I wanted them to have a nice locker room. I wanted them to have brand new cleats, and there were people that were willing to help pay for students that couldn't afford it. And if you give them nice things, they take care of nice things. And understanding that they have to clean up the locker room, and understanding that they have to go to class. That to me, that was a big deal for me. I wanted them to have, almost like a Division III college. I wanted them to have a travel uniform. I wanted them to have the same shorts. I wanted them to have great practice jerseys. I wanted them to have nice things, because I know that they would take care of it. If you give them a raggedy practice jersey, they're not going to take care of it, and that was a big deal for me.
Now, looking at as far as what you've been doing with Arizona, for people who may not know, and I asked you this prior to the interview, so now I know what it is officially, but for people who may not know, and they look up and they say, okay, John Marinelli, let's look him up at Arizona, offensive analyst. Okay, what exactly is that? Can you describe that for the people back who are watching this or will be watching it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, analysts kind of became a thing within the last 10 years, but it's my job. I'm a part of I'm an extension of the position coaches. I work with the quarterbacks, and my job is to allow Coach Doherty, who's our quarterbacks coach and passing game coordinator here at Arizona. My job is to make him not have to lift a pencil or do anything. I'll make the cut ups. I'm involved in and recruiting quarterbacks and trying to get anything that he needs prepared to talk to a recruit, to talk to one of our players at practice. My job is to make it so he doesn't have to think twice. It's already done, and everything's already there. We're involved in game planning. Opponents. I'm big into the analytics. So I was at Greenwich, and understanding the numbers and following trends, finding trends, and all that stuff. So from that standpoint, I was already well versed in that. So finding that kind of stuff for games and weeks. When I'm usually like under the old staff, obviously I don't know what we're doing. I was like a week or two ahead. So when we got to that team, I would present to the staff basically, this is a brief overview before we dove into it. So my job is to make it so coaches don't have to do anything but coach and recruit. That's what an offensive analyst is. So learning the ins and outs of the old staff and the new staff, and seeing how things are different. I grew up watching my dad do things, and he constantly changed. And talk about an idea, man. So I know where I got that from. But the learning experience that I get to hopefully, so when I become a position coach and hopefully move up in this profession, I can take what I see and install it.
Do you think being able, like you mentioned about how you had some great ideas, not so great ideas, some that were shot down, some that were like, oh, you know what, let's try it. Do you think that doing that, you can, you were able to carry that with you in this position? Because like, you alluded to with the analytics and everything, sometimes some of your ideas will work, sometimes they won't. But you're preparing, as you mentioned, the position guys so that they, that way they don't have to lift a pencil or have to do anything. So there's a lot of pressure, but in a good way, on you.
Yeah, I would say leave your ego at the door, because you're going to come up with ideas and they're going to get shot down immediately. And if you're sensitive, this is not a good profession for you. So roll with the good and the bad. I mean, if you have an idea, put it on the board and let's see it. But you better have researched your idea. Don't just say, "Oh, I saw this yesterday. It's really cool. We should put it in." So how does it fit us? How does it fit? And this is at Greenwich, we revamp the offense based every year, to what the personnel was. So we researched our own team and we said, okay, we need to change X, Y, Z. Same thing when you walk into a game planning. You better have researched your ideas or you're going to get called out. And if you're sensitive, it's going to be very tough. Don't be afraid. No idea is a bad one if you've researched it and you've done your homework. And if you have a bad idea, it could be dicey, and some of it's comedy, sometimes it's not. It just depends. But leave your ego at the door if you have one, and roll with it.
Now, when the ball is kicked off and the game is starting, are you on the headset listening to what's going on? Are you contributing to the game? Or is it kind of, well, you did your job prior, now the game's being played, and now you're taking notes as far as what ideas that you implemented and shared are working and what aren't working, so that you can, like you said, you plan 2, 3, 4 weeks ahead of time?
Yeah, game day is always different. It just depends on where, I was on a headset, and analysts we're not allowed to talk. So there are specific things that analysts can and can't do. Like we're not allowed to be talking to players. So a lot of my conversations were just to the coaches, making sure that they had all the information that was happening and where we saw the trends going of that game based on the personnel. So Coach Sumlin is a rule follower. We followed every rule and made sure to, that was never going to be an issue with Coach Sumlin. And but that was my job, make sure they had every piece of information. And if I saw something I was with the quarterbacks room last year, so I was working directly under Coach Mazzoni. I've known him forever. I could pretty much say anything to him on the field, and he knew the information would add value to his thought process, the way he was calling the game.
And as far as looking at the recruitment process and being able to look at players, what is the biggest difference as far as from the talent that you saw from Connecticut, and then being able to now you're looking at the entire country of the U.S., United States of America? What is, and I'm not even saying this in a negative way, because there's, like we alluded to, there's so much talent in Connecticut, people don't realize it. but what do you view as the difference, I guess, if that's coming out in the right way between you?
So this is, I haven't been able to quite put my finger on it, and this could be a whole nother Zoom. The brief one is there isn't a lot of national recruiting coverage in New England. And because of that, you have, when you're a coach, you look at 247 arrivals, you see where the kid's ranked, you can see where he has other offers. And if they're not on one of those sites, then you immediately think that he's not very good. We don't care about stars. I mean, 3-star, 4-star. I mean, those are non-football people putting a star on a football player. So we're not looking at stars. We'll do our own evaluation as coaches, but they do need to be on a list. So if I know that I'm going to travel to Connecticut, I want to know who the top players are in Connecticut, and that's where we go first. And if they're not on that list, it's really hard for me to sell this kid to this coaching staff because, well, why isn't he on 247? Okay, maybe he's not serious about football. Maybe he doesn't go to camps. All those things start to come up, and so you don't take a shot on it. So the first thing that needs to happen is there needs to be, 247 and rivals need to be more involved in New England. I don't know how that happens. The second piece is there are so many colleges surrounding these kids, Division III, Division II, FCS, and the sprinkles of FBS programs, Rutgers, UConn, UMass, BC, Syracuse, those types. There's so many recruiting. If I'm a player and I went to Trinity. I went to Trinity College. I loved my experience at Trinity. I played for Coach Devaney. But if he was recruiting me out of high school and I was getting recruited by BC, and I told BC that I'm looking at Trinity College as well, they'd be like, "What? Like you're not okay? That kid's not serious about football." So a lot of those kids, they're not educated enough in their recruiting role to know. You don't tell FCS coaches that you're looking at D3 schools. You don't tell the same thing to FBS. You don't tell, so on and so forth. There's like little things you have to educate your players on because it will come up on a staff. Like, why is he looking at those schools? Maybe he's not serious. Maybe he doesn't want to further his career in football. So that's the other thing. And it's hard for kids to understand that. And because there's so many colleges, like Arizona has like 3 that play football. In Connecticut alone, you have Yale, Trinity, the list goes on. I mean, there's more college, New Haven, but Arizona, you have 2 FBS schools and an FCS school. And so if you're a Arizona high school player, you can say, you're be talking to majority FBS schools because there's not a big Division III presence out here. And so those conversations are different, and it's not watered down like it is in New England, where you have all these schools that are talking to players. And that's why I think you don't see a lot of Connecticut kids at the FBS level. It's not because of talent. It's just because of the process. And unfortunately, it's just over recruited with Division III, Division II. And fortunately, it's over recruited because a lot of those kids are still playing football in college, and there's benefits to all that too. But at the highest level, that's what I think is one of the reasons.
Coach, I never thought of that. I never thought of the fact that there being so many schools as far as in Connecticut and in the Northeast alone, that it kind of in some ways sucks up the talent, whereas you allude to in Arizona, there's only so many, so there's more quantity of players to be able to pick from, rather in New England, because there's so many, and they, like you said, I think recruitment in and of itself, and like you said, we could do another Zoom on that, is because it's, to me, it almost screams like it's like marketing. You have to sell yourself, but there's a proper way to do it, because like you just said, if you tell a coach from, let's just say, I don't know, UConn, and you say, oh yeah, I'm looking at, as you're talking to the UConn coach, you're saying, yeah, I'm also looking at Wesleyan and Trinity. Like you said, you get off the phone and that coach is saying, wait, why is he looking at D3 schools? Is he looking at something else? Because especially for a Power 5, Pac-12, your job is on the line every day. You have to produce. If you don't produce, then you're on the street.
Yep. And coaches have to be able to stand on the table for their players that they recruit. And if your recruit's not on their national recruiting service, it's a very tough sell at some places, because you could be that guy that needs, some programs need to win now. Some guys have people in situations where they're okay contractually, or they're not on the hot seat. But if you're a coach on the hot seat, you need to win now. So you need to get players in to help you now. So someone needs to write good articles about you. So you need to get good recruits. And I don't know how many positive articles would come out about a diamond in the rough from New England that's not on a recruiting site, that doesn't have a highlight video, so on and so forth. So there is a little bit of game to it. I think player education as a high school coaching standpoint, that's what I focused on when I was a high school coach, is just educating them on conversations, so on and so forth.
Coach, we've just about run out of time, but again, I really do appreciate you coming on. It was great to be able to talk about your time at Greenwich, and also even talking a little about recruitment, where, if I've always said, if I can learn something every day, I'm getting better as a person. I just learned something about recruiting that I didn't even know. So thank you so much. And as always,
it's my opinion. It might not be right, but,
but it makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, if whoever watches this, if you get to the end, I would just say, educate yourself, no matter what the sport, educate yourself on the recruiting process, talk to your coaches. If your coaches aren't involved, see if there's another coach. I know that some coaches don't get involved in recruiting. We sent over 40 in 4 years. We sent over 45 kids to go play college football. So whether they wanted to, or whether they continued their career or not, they all wanted to at least try to further it. So I was pretty proud of that, and helping kids get into schools that they might not be able to get into, maybe they could, or helping them pursue a passion in something that they wanted. So I highly recommend doing something, but talk to your coaches.
Coach, I got one more question real quick for you. You mentioned about how you want to move up, which I think any coach would. And you're seeing how at the NFL level, young coaches, where 10, 15, 20 years ago, young coaches were not getting an opportunity. You had to buy your time. I mean, prime example, the defensive coordinator for the Rams is now the new head coach of the Chargers. And he looks like he's 10 years old. McVay was one of the youngest coaches when he was hired. And I mean, you look at that Washington, you had McVay, you had Kyle Shanahan, you had all these guys, also Matt LaFleur as well. Do you feel like because of the way this movement is, that there's an opportunity because of what you have as far as knowing the analytics, having all this energy, having the passion, that there's a chance for you to continuously move up?
I think the answer is yes, but also this is a relationship business. You just saw all the three of those guys they're tied together, and they will be tied together. And the more people you can meet, the more people you can do a great job for, the more opportunities you're going to have. So for me, I'm at Arizona. I'm with Coach Fish. I'm going to work my butt off for them, make sure that this coaching staff has everything that they need to be successful. And then from there, if opportunities come, keep your head down, work hard, and be a good person. So those, if I continue to do those three things, and hopefully I'll continue to have an opportunity. But I'm not trying to look like 5 years out, hopping into a meeting here in a little bit. I'm going to be the best I can be in that meeting, to be the best teammate I can be on this coaching staff, and just keep working hard, because that was what I did in year one, Greenwich, all the way through. But you asked me what the turning point was, and it's just hard work. And that's all this is in any profession, hard work.
Coach, I'm rooting for you a lot. I really do think you have a bright future. I mean, you're doing a lot right now, and I think you're going to continuously move up as far as Arizona is concerned. And you mentioned the diamond in the rough. Not people may not know if they don't have the film and all that. I think the diamond in the rough, as far as you, Connecticut, doing what you're doing with Arizona, I wish you nothing but the best of luck, and hopefully, I can get you back on in the future.
Absolutely. Appreciate all you do for high school sports, especially in Connecticut. Can keep doing it, man. This is awesome. I've watched your podcast. It's great. So keep spotlighting athletes and putting the state first, man. That's great.
I appreciate it. That'll wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent, and I'm on our journey to find them all. Have a good one, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.